Today we're going to talk about pre-deployment surveys. The pre-deployment tool is a new tool in Wolf Wi-Fi with version 2.0. Obviously we're really excited about this tool. Today we're going to go through how to use the tool and what it can do for you. You'll see the pre-deployment option off the main menu. I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in there. You'll see a familiar screen if you've used the tool before. You've got basically a screen here where you're going to create sites just like the regular survey tool. The site description just needs to be something that you can relate to. It doesn't matter, it's not tied to anything specifically. The SID option on here needs to be the SID for the wireless network that's going to be in focus. For the wireless network you're going to be surveying. It doesn't matter whether you're connected to the network or not. It can be both active or passive, same as it is on the site survey side. I'm going to go ahead and just create a test here real quick so we can take a look at it. Tap on it and select Manage. You're going to get that familiar screen. If you've used the survey tools before, you need to load a floor plan. As we've talked about in other videos, you need to use the gallery to pick your floor plan. That'll give you the most consistent results. Some of the other tools out there today, file manager tools and image manager tools, you have some mixed results with those. So if you stick with the built-in gallery, you'll be good to go. I'm just going to pick a simple floor plan here to take a look at. Alright, so the idea behind the pre-deployment tool, depending on what tools you've used in the past, pre-deployment surveys kind of have some different descriptions. So they kind of get blurred together between predictive surveys. I've used some tools where the pre-deployment survey tools is basically nothing more than a predictive survey where you place an icon and you estimate the range, and then based on that, that's what you use to design your network with. What we're talking about with our pre-deployment tool is actually going out on site with a mobile survey kit. That kit can have a single access point or multiples, 3 or 4 or 5, depending on how big your environment is and how fast you need to get done. So the idea is basically you fire the access points up in the locations that you've determined that you want to place them. You go around and you take your samples, you pick that access point up, you move it to the next location, you take more samples, you go on through this process, and when you're done, the app will actually present you with a heat map and all the other views that's available to you on the survey side, and allow you to look at this network as if it's a fully functional wireless network. So let's just go ahead and jump right in here. The first thing you're going to want to do is place your icons. The thing about the icons that makes this unique compared to the site survey side is the pre-deployment tool uses a combination of both the description and the MAC address to associate the taps that you're taking with the hardware as you move it around. So for example, let's say you've got a single access point in your mobile survey kit. That access point obviously is going to have a MAC address associated with it, and if you was to place that access point in place, take some taps, and move it and take some more taps, if all we was keying off of was the MAC address, there'd be no way for the app to know when that hardware is moved. So what we've done is we've tied this to the description field, and because of that, the description field needs to be unique for every single new location that you place that piece of hardware. So I'm going to go through here real quick. I'm going to place some access point icons on here, and I'm going to set them up and kind of give you, that way you can get a visual for what I'm talking about. Let's say for this survey here, maybe I've already done some predictive work and I've kind of decided roughly where I need to test from. I'm going to place a few icons. I'm going to just select the second icon from the left at the top on your toolbar as your icon gallery. I'm going to select access point, and you're going to place these by double tapping. And let me get rid of this toolbar here real quick, or the keyboard. So here's what you'll see. Basically you got a description field 1 and 2. You've got a MAC field 1 and 2, and you've got a box that says survey this location, and then you've got some filter options. And we'll get into those filter options in a few minutes, but the things that are important here is the description and the MAC fields. Like I said, the description needs to be unique for every location you've determined that you're going to test an access point from. You can do these ahead of time as far as placing your icons if you already know where you're going to test, or sometimes I'll go into an environment and I'll just pick a spot and I'll start there and move around. And when I do that, I'll place my icons as I go. It really doesn't matter whether you place the icons ahead of time or if you do it, as you move through the environment. But since I can't really move around here while I'm connected to the TV, I'm just going to go ahead and place a few icons and kind of show you how this works. So description field, since it has to be unique for each piece of hardware, Generally what I will do is I'll reference those location 1, location 2, location 3. You can name it anything you want, just know that it has to be unique as you move them. So we'll just call this location 1. And I'm on my MAC filter, I'm using a single band access point here for this example. If you're using a dual band, there's an option here for you to place both the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz. That way you can do the survey on both bands at the same time. It works the same way. But if you'll hit the hourglass next to the MAC address, what that will do is it will show you every piece of hardware that's audible right now where you're standing based on the SID that you defined when you created the site, back on the first screen that you get to. Well, I've only got one access point, as I said. It's plugged up right now, so here it is. Sometimes when I do surveys, I'll use 3 or 4 access points. If I've got a big area to cover, this takes too long if you're just going to use one radio. So you may have 3 or 4 different options in here showing up. This is a dynamic list, and it will update every few seconds. So what that allows you to do, if you've got these access points spread out a little bit, you're not real sure which ones are which, maybe you haven't looked or documented what the MAC address is on them or whatever. You can just walk over to that piece of hardware, get real close to it, and wait a few seconds for this to update, and you'll see that whichever one has the strongest signal strength on it, that's the one that you're standing right on top of. So that makes it where you can just quickly figure out what, make that association of that piece of hardware without having to log into the device or console into it, pull the MAC address, that kind of thing. So it's real simple now, though. I've got one radio, this is no problem. I'm just going to select this one. When you select it, it goes ahead and puts the MAC address in that MAC filter. You can also manually type that in if you know what it is. Maybe you're doing these icons at your desk and you've not even went on site yet. If you've got those MAC addresses documented, you can just type them in manually. It doesn't matter. There's another option up at the very top. There's a box that says survey this location. We're going to get into that in just a second, but that's very important as well for the pre-deployment. I'm going to select save. You'll see that my icon's here. There's my label. I'm going to go ahead and just place a couple more icons here so I can show you how this works. I'm going to place one here. I'm going to call this location 2. And again, I'm selecting the same MAC address. When I hit my filter, this is the same piece of hardware. I'm going to select that same one. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to place another one. We'll call this location 3. Select the same access point, save it. Now, if you're setting this up and let's say you've got 2 access points that you're going to run side by side as you're doing this, or 3 or 4, or how many it is. What I will do on my naming scheme then, I'll switch it up a little bit, and I'll start naming them AP1 location 1, AP2 location 1, AP3 location 1. And then when I move them, then they'll become AP1 location 2, AP2 location 2, AP3 location 2. That way, later, when you're going through looking at the filters and you're creating your different maps and stuff, when you look at your filter list, the description is populated in there, and it makes it easy to go back and look and see which access points and which locations you're filtering against. Now, you'll be able to see a little bit better here in a couple minutes when we pull up an actual survey that I've done. But for now, you'll see here that placing these icons, and you got your unique labels on here. We're going to go back in and take a look at what that survey this location box is all about. Now, on the pre-deployment and the site survey side, either one, once you place an icon, if you go back and do a long press on top of that icon, it'll open the device manager tab back up where you can put your information back in. Now, to survey this location, all right. Right now I've got 3 different icons. They're in 3 different locations. They represent 3 different places I'm going to test my piece of hardware. I'm going to take samples based on those. When I have my access point in location 1, and that's where it's plugged up, and I'm ready to start taking my samples, I need to go to the icon for location 1. I'm going to do a long press on it, and I'm going to check the box that says survey this location. What that tells the app is that's where the hardware is right now, and it's live and audible, and anything that I record based on the taps that I'm taking gets associated with this physical location on my map. Now, you cannot have more than one icon enabled where it says survey this location if it has the same MAC address. So what that basically does is it just kind of helps prevent accidental data entry for an icon or an access point location that's not audible at the time. Now, like I said, you can do a survey with multiple access points. So you can have this box checked on multiple icons as long as they have different MAC addresses. It just won't allow you to accidentally have it enabled for two different locations on the same access point. Obviously, an access point can be in two places at the same time, and that's what that's designed to prevent. The reason why I point that out is if you was to go into another location, long press on it, check that box, and apply it, you'll see that the box went way over here and moved to this one. It will automatically uncheck that previous location. You don't have to remember to go back and uncheck them. But we're just going to start with location 1. Check this box. You'll see our green box come back to us. We know this is our live active location. So now, if I go back into my survey mode, which is the first icon up at the top on the toolbar, and I start taking taps, you'll see the dots will show up. You know, you've got the breadcrumb trail that you're used to seeing. The label over top of that icon will update dynamically. It'll show you the signal strength for the taps that you're taking as you're moving around. And it'll change every time you take a tap if those readings change. So now, we'll say I've taken all the taps I want to take in location 1. I'm satisfied. I've got the information that I'm looking for. Now I'm going to unplug this access point and I'm going to carry it over to location 2 and plug it in over there. Once I've done that, I need a long press on it. Select survey this location. Now you'll notice a couple things here. One, like we've said already, the box has moved on us. Another thing you'll notice is that the taps have went away. Now all that stuff is still saved, but what it does is it cleans your floor plan back up, so now you've got a clean slate to work with while you have your hardware in this one location. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to move along and I'm going to start taking taps. This is my new location. And the same as before, your labels will update now on the new icon. Alright, now let's say I've taken all the taps I want to take here. You know, I've covered my area the way that I want. Come in here, same thing, and I'm ready to move. I've unplugged my access point, I've taken it to location 3. I've fired it back up. I'm going to come into my app, I'm going to long press on there. I'm going to say survey this location here now. Save that. Now again, what you'll see is all my taps have went away from my previous 2 locations. And I got a clean slate to work with for my new location. We're going to go ahead and take some taps here. Alright, you can kind of see how that works. So, in a nutshell, this is the process that you'll go through for a pre-deployment survey. Again, remember what's important is for every single location you test your hardware, you need to place an icon and a new description for that location and associate it with the same MAC address. If we had a survey going where we had, let's say we had 2 access points in our survey kit, we would have 2 of these icons lit up at the same time. I'd have a location associated with where those 2 pieces of hardware were at any given time, but the steps that I'm taking would be exactly the same. I would light those up. I would check the boxes associated with those locations where they are. I would take my taps. I'd move my hardware. I'd move my box that says survey this location, and then I'd go on and I'd repeat those steps again. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to back out of here, and I'm going to go into another survey that pre-deployment survey that I'd already done. So here's the heat map. Basically on this pre-deployment survey I tested 5 different locations. Based on whatever information I had before I went in there, I decided those are the locations I wanted to take a look at. Maybe I'd already worked with a design engineer and we'd done a predictive survey and guesstimated where that hardware needed to go. At any rate, here's where we ended up at. We tested 5 different locations, and the different views that we're going to take a look at here pretty much relate to the site survey side as well, but we're going to go ahead and cover them just in case we've got some viewers that's interested in the pre-deployment side and then don't have time to go watch the site survey video too. Like I said, basically this is the heat map, and this is going to be a good view for you to look at, to take a look at your wireless network as a whole. The nice thing about this, you can see where the benefit to the pre-deployment stuff comes in, because now, even though I did this survey with a single access point, and each location was lit up individually one at a time, I have all this data that I can pull together. Now I can look at heat maps in different views as if all these access points were active at one time. Just like this was a live functional network, even though it's not. So here, in the heat map view, there's a couple of different things you can do. Typically what I'll do is I'll take a look at this. Like I said, this is my good overview map. But another thing I will do is I'll go into my subfilters and I'll take access points out of the picture to see how it affects the overall coverage of the network based on that. So just for the sake of argument, if we wanted to say what would it look like if we took this access point here in the middle out, well, if you zoom in and look, I call that one location 2. So what we'll do is we'll go up here to the menu list, which is the third icon from the left, and I'm going to select my access point subfilter, which is the first line on here. This is a dynamic list that will show you all the different access points that were involved in the survey when you was taking it. Right now, like I said, I'm using a single band access point, so I've only got one MAC address enabled on these. If these were dual band access points, then you'd see both MAC addresses listed on here. You can do your filters and views based on one MAC address or the other, or you can look at both of them at the same time. Ideally, when you start getting into your channels and stuff like that, you'll want to look at one or the other to clean it up. That way you're not overlapping too much as far as looking at your information. But for our example, we decided we was going to take location 2 out of the equation. All you have to do is come in here and uncheck the box that corresponds with that access point. Hit apply. And now when you get back to your main view, the heat map will have redrawn automatically and show you what it would look like without the data that was associated with that location. So all the taps that were taken when we had location 2, when we had that box checked that said survey this location, those are gone now as far as the heat map is concerned, and it is redrawn it, and this is what the network would look like had we not put that location in place. We can go back in here and continue this process if we wanted to and say, well, let's take location 3 out as well. What would that look like? And so now you can see location 3 is gone, and you start to see a big void start to show up in our coverage now that we're taking access points out that's along the perimeter of the building. You can get away with the ones in the middle a little better, but now you start to really see the impact of this. Another view that I rely on heavily as far as doing pre-deployment, well, really on surveys too, but pre-deployment probably more so, is the edge map. So I'm going to go back in here first and I'm going to enable my filters back. When you're in your access point filter list, you'll notice there's an option at the top that says more options. If you touch on that and expand it, you get some check all and uncheck all, check all MAC 1, uncheck all MAC 2. You get some options like that, especially if you're doing a big survey. I've done some where I've used 30 or 40 locations for testing, and this list gets very long, and you don't go through and have to uncheck or check each of those individually. So just know that those are there. So you can speed up the process a little bit. I'm just going to check all of them and turn them all back on. And we'll jump back out here to the heat map for a second just so you can see that now we're back to what we was originally. I'm going to go to my filter view here. I'm going to uncheck my heat map option. And I'm going to enable AP Edge. Now before I put my subfilters on, I just want to show you something. This is the AP Edge with all the access points enabled. And you'll see why this is not the primary use for this. The heat map takes all the best signal samples from all the access points combined and generates the best possible heat map coverage on all the collected data. Basically, that's the best equivalent for the wireless devices moving around. They're going to associate with the strongest signal, strongest access points if everything's working properly. The edge map's not designed to do that. The edge map is designed to show edge coverage and not blend those together. So what you end up with is a layered look where you've got one access point drawn out on top of another one that's drawn out on top of another one that's drawn out. So you'll see some really funny looking edge maps if you don't use your subfilter list. So now if we go back into the filters, you'll see we've got the AP Edge enabled still. I'm going to go back up to my access point subfilter, which is that first line. And I'm going to say unselect all. And then I'm going to enable location 1. We'll take a look at location 1 first. And now you can see the true purpose of the edge map. Basically what it does is it erases everything else as far as all your taps and your readings and everything. It will remove the other icons off the screen, and all you have left to look at is the one icon and the associated data. So now I can see clearly how far this one access point reaches, and based on what my application needs are in my environment, I can subfilter based on signal strength even. and I can shrink that down and get it to whatever I consider to be my usable wireless signal strength. To do that, here we'll just do that real quick. You go back into your filters list again, and you'll see your second line now is signal dBm, and we'll click on subfilters there. I know this white screen is hard to see, but basically what it is lines for ranges of signal strength. So the first line is 95 dBm and lower. The next range is 86 to 95 dBm. The next one is 76 to 85 dBm. So I'm just going to, for the sake of looking at this, I'm going to say I don't want to see anything that's weaker than 75 dBm. So I'm going to uncheck these other boxes. I'm going to hit apply, go back in here, and now you can see the map is redrawn, and this is showing me every sample that I took while this access point was in this location, there was at least 75 dBm or greater, and now the map is drawn out based on that. So if my minimum decibel requirements were 75 dBm, then now I can be confident that what I'm looking at here is my actual usable wireless, and not just a bunch of weak, long-reaching, low-speed wireless network coverage. It's not going to be any good to me once I actually install this, or it won't be any good to the customer. I'm going to go back in here again, and I'm going to click on the access point list, and now I'm going to turn location 1 off, and I'm going to turn location 2 on. We'll apply that. You'll see now we moved over here. We've got the icon back. We've got the data that we collected back. I still have that second subfilter on for signal strength, but I can turn that back off easy enough. Go back in here to my signal strength subfilter, put all those boxes back in place, hit apply. Now you can see all my collected data. So this is very useful to go back and look at your radios individually. Another thing where this becomes extremely helpful, let's say in a pre-deployment scenario, I have tested my location here, and even while I was taking my samples, I suddenly realized I'm going to have to move my access point into another hallway or something for my actual deployment. So, you know, if I went and moved my access point from here to here for my pre-deployment, and, you know, I create a new icon, put a new description, you know, maybe we call that location 2A or something, just so I know that I'm still in the same general area. This is where a physical piece of hardware is going to go, but it might go either here or here, maybe this room or that room right next to it, and I don't know yet. So I'll test with those two locations, and now what I can do is come in here with my edge map, and I can just toggle back and forth between the two locations, and, you know, it becomes real easy to see where your signal strength reach is, and then you make a decision based on where you want it to be. And if you do get into some of those sub-locations like what I'm talking about, the nice thing about that is once you decide which locations you're actually going to use, and when you turn your heat map on, you just select those final destinations, and it'll get rid of the rest of that stuff and clean it up, and you can still see what your final network is going to look like. Another new feature with 2.0 that we're really excited about is the interference map. So the idea behind the interference map is to take a look at any other networks in the area outside the scope of the one that you're trying to focus on. Maybe it's pre-deployment or your corporate network. To enable your interference map, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll leave my heat map up, although you can do this without the heat map or anything else. I'll leave my heat map up for reference. If you go to your filter list, down at the bottom you have an option for interference. You also have a subfilter option. If you hit the subfilter option, I know it's hard to see these white screens, basically you get a line item list of every single SID that was detected the whole time that you was performing this survey. I've got 3 or 4 that showed up here, but I'm just going to select one of these and hit apply. And so now what you see is you get a nice shaded overlay on top of your heat map of the actual locations where that wireless network was detected based on the taps that you took. So, you know, it becomes real easy to see that, you know, this whole side of the building, you know, especially from this corner, has an outside network. It's called Linksys. It's got a little label on here to tell you what it is. You can even long press in the area of where you took the taps and that was detected, and it'll give you some more information about it, such as, you know, again, it'll list the SID, it will show you the broadcast MAC address, the security that was on that wireless network, the frequency and channel that it's running on. The nice thing about that is that, you know, if there's nothing you can do about an outside network, at least if you know some parameters about it, then you can design around it as best as possible. So again, this shaded area here, it'll show you your outside networks, your neighbor networks, or perhaps it's an internal network that's overlapping, or an employee that's maybe connected an access point up that you don't know about, a rogue network. And again, you can use this on the site survey side too, and you know, it'll give you the exact same thing. Couple other little things in here. I'm just going to jump out of this survey. I'll go back into the one that we started with. Like what we've talked about before, you can long press on your icons, bring your screen back up for your device manager. You also have a button on there to delete, so you can delete your icons there. You can also long press on individual taps that you've taken and delete them as well. Every now and then you might get a stray tap. I know I do it myself where I'm taking taps or whatever, maybe my wrist or something, we'll hit the screen and register a tap way over here to the side. You just go get rid of that tap, it's no problem. A couple other little things that's in here. As far as the toolbar goes across the top, we've already talked about the survey mode and the device manager. We've talked about the filter list. There's an undo button on here where you can undo your last tap and undo your last icon that's placed in order. You can just go backwards. That might be faster sometimes than just trying to long press. There's a little wrench icon up here, that's your settings. If you open that up, you've got some options to change the dynamic labels over top of the icons. You can show your description 1, description 2 fields, IP address MAC, or you can not show any of those. You can uncheck those. Also, you have a slide bar here where you can adjust the size of your icons and also your tap sizes, so you can make those bigger or smaller. The last icon there on the end, a little drop-down menu, that basically brings up some shortcuts that allow you to jump around inside the suite of apps. You can go over to the Wi-Fi scan or channel scan from here and look at things if you need to and then jump back. You also have access to the wake lock button here. If you forget to enable that, your screen starts going to sleep on you as you're walking around. You don't have to go back to your main menu to turn that on. The menu button for the device itself, if you bring that up, you've got a change floor plan option, and you also have a survey snapshot option. If you click on that snapshot, basically all that is a screenshot. If you're zoomed in, zoomed out, whatever you're seeing on your screen, when you do that, you're going to get a screenshot of that. I know a lot of devices it's really easy to take screenshots. Some of them are not quite that easy, so we went ahead and put that in there. All you got to do is give it a file name and then click save, and then it'll put it on your SD card. Last thing I want to talk about is actually back on the site screen. When you open the tool, this is the screen where you create the sites. Same as it is on the site survey side. If you hit the menu option here, again, now you've got options to do import and export your surveys. If you click on export survey, you get a list of every site you've got defined in here. And you can go through and check one or multiple sites and click on export, give it a name, save it, and it'll wrap all the data, the floor plans, taps, icons, icon location, everything associated with those sites. It'll wrap it all up in a zip file and put it on your SD card. At that point, you can take it and put it on your Google Drive. You can email it to somebody, share it with a friend. As long as they've got Wolf installed on their device, and they can import that and see everything that you see here. They can play with the filters, the maps. It doesn't matter if you're going from a 10-inch device to a 4-inch phone to a 7-inch tablet. Screen size doesn't matter, or rescale itself. Manufacturer doesn't matter either. So that pretty much covers the pre-deployment. If you have any questions, feel free to email us. You can just email us at support@wolfwifi.com. Thank you for taking the time to watch.